Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Hannah Wallace and we're here today joined by Conor Colleary from Oracle, and we're talking about real-time payments. Conor, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Real-time payments is now a mainstream requirement across many markets. How are banks responding to the technology demands of providing this service?
Yeah, I think real-time payments have been mainstream for quite a while in a lot of markets. I think if I look at banks generally, they've been a little bit slow with the adoption, and there's been some inhibitors to banks kind of accelerating the adoption of real-time payments. If I look at the technology, so banks are kind of stuck with some legacy architectures that are holding them back from introducing real-time payments to their systems. They're also held back by some valid security concerns that they have, both in terms of fraud and in terms of transaction monitoring. And their ability to address those concerns has held them back a little bit. And this gave an opportunity, I think, to some new players, some fintechs, some third parties to come into the payment space and take some real market share from the banks. I think today the market environment has changed. I think now banks have an opportunity to come back, and some of the things that were holding them back are now addressed. So the technology is now there. They're able to do payments across their whole infrastructure. They're able to manage the complexities of their legacy architecture with new technologies. I think they're also able to address some of the concerns around security and fraud that they had. Standardization has become a big play. So ISO 20022 has been introduced, and that's really helped banks to kind of address the messaging that's required for the international or for the faster payments. And then if I look at the segments, so if I look at retail banking, so payments has been big in retail banking for a long time, and faster payments and real-time payments, but it's also becoming very big in corporate banking now as well. And that has put the real-time payments right at the top of the agenda for banks. It's a really high priority. And for us in Oracle, it's a very interesting space and a very exciting space to be involved in with the customers.
I see. And does real-time compound the problem banks are having with managing legacy infrastructure and building new digital platforms?
Yeah, if you look at the kind of challenges banks are facing, right, and what real-time payments is demanding from the banks in terms of flexibility, scalability, speed of the transactions, seamless integration, right? If you look at their legacy architectures, those are exactly what those legacy architectures are inhibiting. So it's an absolute big challenge for the banks and something that they're really trying to overcome. And putting in place investments, putting in place projects that will allow them to overcome those challenges as fast as possible.
Legacy infrastructure inhibits innovation in building new digital services. What strategy can banks adopt to manage this?
So you're right, legacy does definitely inhibit. And I think, if you look at payments specifically, payments has probably been the most intermediated part of banking business over the last few years. There's been a slew of new entrants into the marketplace, and they have taken, like I said, significant market share in the payment space. I think when I look at the bank's opportunity now and the kind of strategy they need to put in place, I would put it on kind of four distinct pillars, right? So banks need to have a holistic view of their payment strategy. They need to take it not in silos, not from different divisions, but holistically across the whole bank, and kind of put payments at that level where it can have a holistic approach and address the payment challenges in a holistic manner. The second thing is they need to look at the payment architecture, and they need to make sure it's open and scalable and flexible. So when they look at the payment architecture that they have internally, that usually means a refresh or a transformation, because at the moment they probably aren't as flexible and scalable as they need to be. And then I think also, and this kind of merges the two together, they need to look at beyond just payments and beyond the bank's infrastructure. So when we look at payments now, it's much more than just the payment itself. It's how that payment fits in the whole ecosystem that the bank is living in, that their customers are living in. And for that, the banks need to open up, they need to collaborate with other players, and that allows them to do two things. It allows them to compete much faster, it allows them to deliver much better customer experience, and a superior customer experience and gain market share, etc. So I think that's very, very important as part of their strategy.
And finally, what new innovative services should banks be offering?
So I think, in the payment space, there's an enormous amount of innovation and potential innovation that banks can look at. I would divide it into two specific areas, so retail and corporate. And if I look at retail banking, there's really is an opportunity for banks, and we're seeing a lot of banks starting to innovate around peer-to-peer payments, social media payments, and integrating payments into the day-to-day life of their direct retail customers. I think it is an example we're seeing well in the United States, which is a collaboration of different banks, and they're doing peer-to-peer payments interbank, which is again differentiated from what fintechs can do in the payment space. The other area I think in retail which is very interesting is the Internet of Things. So, and underneath that, the Internet of Payments. I think there's a lot of innovation opportunity for banks to take advantage of, allowing machines to make payments in an authorized, secure manner. I think that's very, very exciting area for banks to be focused on. If I look at the corporate banking space, I think it's much more about distributed ledgers. It's about blockchain and how do banks innovate in the payment space, leveraging these new technologies that are coming into place. I also think there's a lot of opportunity when banks look at trade flows and kind of analytics around what payments their customers are making, for them to make innovative services that really address and add value to the customers. So that would be the two areas I think where banks really need to focus on.
Conor, thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.